So now I want to talk about something that's been on my list for a while, and I'm finally getting around to talking about it, which is VR and Star Wars. And I was hoping some developments would happen to make it so I wouldn't have to talk about this, but they haven't happened yet. And yes, there will be more important things in the world to discuss, but Star Wars is very important to me. So let me tell you what I'm talking about here. So first of all, let's take a look at what the VR platforms are that are out there. We've got the Oculus Rift, the PlayStation VR, the HTC Vive, the Samsung Gear VR, and then of course Google Daydream, Cardboard, and all that kind of stuff out there. But these are the main players right now in the industry. The top three there, the Oculus, the PS4, and the HTC Vive, are all essentially being based off of PC hardware, in that the PlayStation 4, even though it's a unique operating system, the underlying hardware is fairly similar to what you have in your gaming PC. And then of course you've got the Oculus Rift with their store where you buy software for their platform that doesn't work on the HTC Vive, although you can get software to get the Oculus stuff to play on the Vive. It just requires a little bit more tinkering to get everything to work. Bottom line is, the VR world right now is a bit of a mess because of everyone trying to lock down hardware that, although is sort of unique in how it works, is relatively commoditized already, yet everybody's locking software developers into one or the other. And because this stuff is so expensive, I think it's really hurting sales. So this is no new news, but back in February, SuperData broke out the total sales of VR headsets shipped worldwide in 2016. Only 6.3 million. That still sounds like a lot, but it's actually very few, especially when we look at the top three platforms, at least from the hardware technology standpoint. So how did those 6.3 million headset sales break out? Well, not surprisingly, the least expensive option has done the best so far. And this has been around the longest too, the Samsung Gear VR. Oculus has some connection to them, but mostly it's a Samsung thing, and you plug your phone into this little headset that costs $100, $150. They have a remote control now with the new one, and you've got a VR experience that is very accessible because people already have the phone, and it's not very expensive to go up to this headset, and you don't have to have anything else tethered to you. The other platforms have not fared as well, unfortunately. So the PlayStation VR, which did come out probably the earliest amongst all these different things out there, is at 0.75 million, so 750,000 units. On the HTC Vive and the Oculus Rift share about that level of market share between them. And of course, those require the most amount of hardware to get up and running. I think the problem, though, is that this industry needs to grow, and it's going to be hard to grow if all these different software packages and games are segmented to specific platforms. Because if you are looking for VR and the Oculus Rift has 4 of the things that you want to run, and the HTC Vive has three of the others, you're not going to buy either one, because who's going to spend $1,600 on 2 pieces of hardware that really feel and perform about the same? I've tried both, and there isn't a huge difference between them, even though I do prefer the Vive. And the PlayStation VR, of course, is similar. It's a little less fancy because it's running on less impressive hardware, but nonetheless, it's out there also and has its own exclusive titles. And although it's less expensive than the Vive and the Rift, it's still a pretty decent investment. You got to have the console and an additional $300 or so for the PlayStation VR thing. So the industry needs a high tide, and unfortunately right now, with all this segmentation, consumers are not being motivated to buy any of this stuff because they can't get what they want on those platforms, myself included, even though I did buy it already, but I haven't bought a lot of software recently because I've been so frustrated with it. And that brings us to Star Wars. Now, few things in life speak to me more than this commercial does. This was a PlayStation commercial from 2015 around the holiday season, and it's this guy and his friend who grew up playing Star Wars together like all my friends did. I actually had a similar costume to that Darth Vader costume. Even had that R2-D2 at home. It looks about the same. But then his friend shows up in the X-Wing outside the office window. His boring life suddenly changes when his buddy shows up and brings him an X-Wing too. He busts out the window, he hops in the X-Wing and flies away. This is like the experience I always wanted as a kid. I just love Star Wars, and this commercial I've watched quite a bit over the years because it's just so good, and really is a kind of a calling card to my generation perhaps, and perhaps some other generations too. Now, this is what Star Wars games looked like when I was a kid. This is how I used to play Star Wars. This is on the ColecoVision. This was the arcade port of the Star Wars game. As you can see here, it's not the most realistic experience, but that was about as good as we got when I was a kid. And over the years, things have gotten better. I think the best Star Wars game I've played up until recently was probably the one on the GameCube, that Rogue Leader one. Really great space combat game and a lot of fun, but not VR. So that brings us over to Star Wars Battlefront. And back around the holiday season, they announced a free upgrade or free version of the X-Wing mission that is in VR, but it's PlayStation 4 exclusive on the PSVR. So I cannot get it on the PC, even though you and I and many others spent the $100 on the Star Wars Battlefront Season Pass and all the other stuff that you can pay into to get going on here. A pretty decent investment in a game, especially for me. I cannot get access to this even though I have the hardware and paid the season pass fee. They're giving this out for free to PlayStation folks. And there was some talk that it might have a window in which this will be exclusive to PS4 and then it will be released out to the PC. But people have stopped talking about it and stopped asking about it. So I'm bringing it up today because I'm just so darn frustrated, because when VR came out and I saw what it could do, the first thing on my mind was, I am buying this because I know somebody's going to make the XWing game. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting, and then somebody did. I was so excited because, you know, Battlefront's an awesome graphical experience, and here it is. And guess what? Sony PlayStation 4 only. Look how awesome this looks too. This is from another channel called The Switcher. They released their content into Creative Commons. You can find the full video link below. And here is a actual captured footage thing from the PS4 version of this. Even on the PS4, it looks pretty darn good. You can see they modeled the entire X-Wing cockpit. It looks awesome, and it is killing me that I can't play this without having to buy a PS4 and another VR headset that I don't want to have to buy. It's really kind of crazy to buy something for a 15-minute gameplay experience. But I'm hoping beyond hope that maybe we can start talking about this and start writing to EA and their community team. If they hear from enough of us, maybe they will actually do something, at least to answer the question as to whether or not this is going to stay exclusive to the PS4 forever, or if they might honor the money that those of us on the PC side have invested into their game to maybe port it over to the PC version so we can all enjoy it as well. I'll put links down below to who to contact and how to contact them so you can join me in doing so. They haven't responded to me over the last couple of times I've tried, so maybe a few more people might lend them a little bit more of a motivation to respond to their customer base, because this is needed on the PC. I know there's more important things to worry about in the world, but I would like this to happen. So let's make it happen.
This channel is brought to you by my Patreon supporters, including gold level supporters Mark Bollinger, Brian Miller, Mr. Morse, and Cody Falk. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/S.